All right. Okay, I think we're live. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the session. Thank you for coming in. Happy Sunday. I hope this finds you all safe and well, and at home in a safe space with your loved ones. And I hope that you are all healthy and well. I really don't know what to say. I have my prepared remarks here, but the past few days have of everything happening in the United States have really led me to at least try to update my remarks. The topic has certainly changed, and so what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead with some of the changes we're going to try and make to the format before I open Sacred Space. Basically, one of the things we've come to accept is that we will probably be doing Sacred Space sessions in one form or another on an ongoing basis, even after the passing crisis, which seems to be ongoing and sustained. I almost hesitate to say permanent, but even after the immediate crisis, I think our plan is to continue to do these sessions in some form, mainly because of the community it's creating, and people seem to find it useful. So with that, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to change the format a little bit. I will try to keep these sessions to an hour so that people can sort of attend and not fall behind, because 2 hours a week is a lot of time. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to focus on the main talk for the week, and then we'll do some kind of sacred space exercise similar to what we did last week. And then Q&A, we will probably do just once every few sessions. So if you have questions, we'll kind of collect them over a couple of weeks and then do a Q&A session. But that will tend to be after the sacred space. So we'll do a sacred space session for about an hour, and then we'll close sacred space, and then we'll do Q&A. Part of the reason for that is we just want to get people out the door and back to their days, and we don't want to sort of stick Q&A right in the middle and make everybody sit through that. But also, the thing I've noticed is that people in Q&A, and I love doing the Q&A, but people in Q&A naturally are alums of my programs. They'll ask questions about healing. They'll ask questions about bliss. And I love that. And while I'm not sort of pitching the programs per se, to do Q&A where I'm saying, well, as you know, in the bliss program, et cetera, it's not an overt pitch, but it just feels better to me to have that afterwards, outside of strictly speaking sacred space. I mean, I'm not going to be pitching you afterward in the Q&A either, but it's just, I think it would be just cleaner, more comfortable for me, because, I mean, when I'm in sacred space, I don't want to pitch anything. I want to enjoy myself too with all of you. I want to take the nourishment too. So we won't have Q&A today. We'll probably wait and see what questions we have in the coming week, and then maybe do one next week or the week after. Okay. All right, so we have some things to talk about, I think. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set sacred space, do the overall topic, which today will be the topic of social upheaval, and the third wave of crisis and transformation. I didn't know there was really going to be a third wave until just about a couple days ago. And yet, here we are. So let's talk about it. And then we'll do an exercise where we do stand in the sacred together. Again, only if you want. And we'll take it one step further this week, because I think we're going to need it. Okay, so I'll just start, and I'll just say, let me just make sure the Facebook feed is working. Okay. I just want to say I'm honored to be with you here in this time of sensitivity and uncertainty. I look forward to sharing time with you in our sacred space together today. And I'm just going to go ahead and set sacred space. So this is a space devoid of fear, devoid of threat, devoid of control, if you can imagine it, for a limited, boundaried period of time, for us to open to higher guidance from within our own selves. A safe sanctuary space, a moment in time for us all to take refuge so that we can relax and surrender with no danger or threat, so that we can partake of the emotional nourishment and spiritual nourishment that comes from being in sacred space together as a group. And as I open sacred space today, I am proposing that we follow the 4 principles of proceeding in sacred space. The first is confidentiality. When you ask a question or text, if you wish, you can do so anonymously so that your stuff is kept confidential effectively. Number 2, no threat or controlling, no fixing, no tough love. The point here is that we are holding space for each other to be afraid, to be anxious, to be angry, to be happy and relaxed and be okay with that, to hold space for that without trying to fix or cure or otherwise heal it. There's time for that in the profane world later when we disperse, but for now it's just a time for us to be however we find ourselves in the moment and to relax the muscle of keeping it all together, but in a way where you are safe to do that. Okay. The third principle is no commerce. Nothing may be sold or recommended, even if it's like, oh, here's a book that you can read to, kind of learn about these issues, or we don't do that, right? I mean, we can do that afterwards, but this is not the time for that. So nothing may be sold or recommended or suggested. We are here for your energy and your presence, not for the things you bring, but for what you are, not for what you do or provide. In the profane world, you're constantly being clawed and pawed at, right, for what you do or provide, what function you provide for others. That's fine. That's the world of the profane. In the world of sacred, it's paws off, and we are here only to share what we are, not what we bring. And then the fourth is there's no expectation of participation. There's no pressure to do anything, to chat or not chat, to do the exercise, to not do the exercise. Again, the nourishment comes from the held space and your presence and attention from what you are and not what you do or provide. If you can everyone hear me? Try to refresh. Okay. And then all of us together will amplify that. So this is what I propose. And if you are not okay with it, we will give you a moment to withdraw from the group, which is fine. We'll catch up with you later in profane space and still hang out, no worries. So in other words, even as we enter into the sacred space together, there is no fear, threat, or control for you to remain. You come and go as you please, because this is a safe space. Okay. I'll give you all a moment to make your decisions. Okay. For the rest of us, we will now move forward together into sacred space and observe the 4 principles of confidentiality, no fear, threat, or control, no commerce, no expectation of participation. So, thank you for being with me in sacred space today. The topic I want to talk about this week is, for lack of a better title, I just called it social upheaval and the third wave of crisis and transformation. So a couple of sessions ago, we said that with the pandemic, there were 2 tsunami waves rolling across the earth. The first is the health threat of the virus and threat to physical safety and danger. We addressed this when we talked about fear of death, about the power of grief when confronting loss. and even the topic of honoring the dead in our previous sessions. The second wave is the wave that has been right on the heels of the first wave, which is the economic devastation that is rolling across nations and all of the economic distress. And we addressed that more deeply a couple sessions ago when we talked about the sacred aspect of money as a life force. In our last session, we talked about enactment, that as we come out of this quarantine and attempt to reopen, that it was a powerful time for us to be reflecting on what has happened in the last 2.5 months and what in us has changed and what we want to be different in our lives, even going forward. In this session, it is just stunning to me that we actually now need to talk about a third tsunami wave, which is the wave of social upheaval. Following in the wake of virus sickness wave, economic devastation wave, and now this. And I have some comments I want to sort of make about this third wave and how I've been thinking about it in real time. But before I do that, I want to give a pause. And I just want to give a word to the unlawful police execution of George Floyd in the United States. And I honor him, and I honor him, and I grieve his murder and the unlawful murder of so many others at the hands of uncontrolled police brutality in the United States. It's a plague on the people oppressed, and it is a plague on the souls of the law enforcement officers who are allowed, even to their own detriment, to continue in roles that they are not meant to be in. We fail them as well. And as I speak, there have been riots and protests in upwards of 75 cities in the United States in these past 24 hours, and it is long overdue. And the dominant culture here will try to forcefully suppress and stuff this down, as they always have. But every time they do this, they are raping the very thing and realm of the sacred out of their own souls. And they don't realize this. No one has explained this to them. And I feel for them as well. And it's just where we are right now. It's just where we are right now. And I just want to say, that even in the face of all this, I'm sorry that the world is like this, and I grieve over it. But at the same time, I love the world almost now more than ever. Our world, without condition. As I've said before, it doesn't have to be a healed world, a good world, a just world for me to love it. Just like my children don't need to be good children for me to love them. I love them without condition. And I love the world without condition. I love my Black countrymen and women without condition. And grieving as I do, I love all my countrymen and women and everyone I come into contact with around the world without condition. For those of you who have done work with me in healing and have heard my work in myth and fairy tale and archetype, I'm not quite prepared to talk about this in detail, but for those of you who know my work very well and know the things that I teach about, I will just say this: that the Black man, whom I give honor and reverence to, the Black man is the lost board member of American society. In mythical terms, he is the frog of the Frog King fairy tale that I always start my mythic teachings with. And those of you who know this and have heard me teach on this, you know this truth, that there is no healing, that there is no bliss, there is no awakening, there is no redemption, and no recovery of the sacred for American society until the lost board member of the Black man is recovered and honored and reconciled with. That's it. That's it. And you may ask, what about Black women? And let me say this. Let me say this. That if the Black man is the lost board member of American society, then the woman, the human woman, regardless of ethnicity, woman is the lost board member of the world. And there is no healing, no bliss, no awakening, no redemption, and no recovery of the sacred for the world until the lost board member of woman is recovered and honored and reconciled with. That's it. And so if you are a Black woman, Black and woman, then that to me is just beyond the depth of your suppression and the infinitude of your suppressed power to love and to heal and to bear. It's just, in a way, you can just say that when Black women are fully in ascendance, you will know that we are fully healing. You can treat Black women almost as a barometer. The humans who carry both of these blessings, Blackness and womanhood, the more they are suppressed, the more the world is raping the blessing out of all of our own souls. So if you want a simple barometer to see how we're doing, you ask any Black woman how she's doing, and she'll tell you how we are all doing. If you look at the arc of human history through this lens, this mythopoetic lens, you will realize that for a very long time, the collective of human society has been doing exactly this raping to ourselves, unwillingly screwing ourselves, all of us, for a very long time. This is the archetype we are in as I see it. This is very raw. This is an emerging realization for me. I have had these feelings at a general level for a very long time, but they have been coming into very clear focus for me even earlier this week, earlier this morning. I don't feel ready to say much more about it at this point, but this is the thumbnail of the archetype I feel we are in. So then, in witnessing the events of the past 3 months, and now this in the past few days, it is becoming more clear to me that this perhaps Is the transformation we are being pushed towards successfully or not? I don't know. But these convulsions to me, one after another, feel like the next contractions, trying to push the baby out of our collective healing and rebirth. And in America, at least, these birthing pains have been going on for around 250 years. I don't know how things will turn out, but the larger archetypal mythopoetic pattern is becoming clearer and clearer to me, and I will try to say more about this at a later time. So that is my aside. I'm just in deep grief for my countrymen and women, all of them. And I love you all without condition. So then, all right, let me now get back to this third tsunami wave we are in and make some comments there. So I see this as not just in America, but even globally. The first two waves of disruption, the virus comes in and disrupts the economy, economic disruption, and the unequal healthcare that people are it's not even malicious in the moment at this point. It's just the predefined systems which are playing out. The mechanisms that have been in place are just playing out, and people are not being cared for equally. It's just the way things have been set up. So the first two waves of disruption are exposing the inequalities and injustices of the social order all over the world. And while it was perhaps able to be managed and balanced in a fragile equilibrium before the pandemic, with the disruption of the pandemic, many, many aspects have now become unstable. And it's hard to say what will happen in the short term and in the longer term. The first two waves are now giving rise to a third wave of social disruption and a third wave of crisis as well. And so when I step back from all this, because that's what I do, I'm a terrible protester. I'd last all of 5 minutes out there. So I just trying to take a step back is my little contribution to all this. And so when I try to take a step back and take a look at the larger pattern of all this, what do we know about this kind of scenario? At the societal level, this is unprecedented. None of us has experienced anything like this. Perhaps some of us who have been in the First or Second World Wars have experienced this, but we can also look at the analogy of when waves like this hit an individual person, right? So forget about society for a moment. It's too big. Let's just zoom down and take this to the level of an individual person, which is much more manageable. We have much more familiarity with that kind of happening. And so it's basically like when you or someone has a triple tsunami like this hit them in their life, right? They have a devastating health condition that brings life as they know it to a screeching halt. They lose their job and ability to generate economic power and revenue, the ability to put a roof over their own heads, as billions of us around the world have been put in. And then thirdly, they start to lose social standing. They lose their minds. They become unstable, even emotional stability. They lose friends and even major relationships. They get divorced. You get sick, you lose your job, and then lose your marriage or relationship. Right? Typically, when as adults, we're advising each other, friends over coffee, we'll say, well, the general rule or guideline, they say you can change your job, location, or your relationship, or be in the middle of a major health thing, but ideally not all three at once, right? I mean, ideally, if you know they're coming, you try to sequence or stagger them one at a time if you can. Right? This is the advice we as friends give to each other over coffee or whatever, right? But then when we have a friend or we ourselves are in a position where it's out of our control, these triple waves are hitting one after another, it's absolutely catastrophic. So let's look at what happens to a person when this kind of thing happens at the individual level. And then we can maybe learn something about what's happening when it happens to all of us as a race of humankind. So to a person, when this happens, they often feel like they're not going to make it, right? They struggle to recover from the first wave. And just as they get their head above water with the first wave, the next wave hits. And then just as they come out, I mean, it's almost ironic. I mean, it's almost comical that just 7 days ago, I was here talking to you about enactment and poking our heads out of the bunker hole and thinking about what's happened and trying to take stock. And then days later, this next wave hits us, all of us. And then the next wave and the next wave, right? Disease, and then job loss, and then financial disaster, and then loss of marriage or relationship. At the individual level, when this happens to a person, when this has happened to me, it feels almost like the gods are trying to keep you down, to hold you down, to keep you from getting up too soon, and keeping you down in pressure and containment, which is our key word, right? From our very first 2 sessions at the beginning of the pandemic, 2.5 months ago, this whole talk series, the hallmarks of transformation. You can see it as punishment. The gods are holding me down under the water, hitting me with tsunami after tsunami, and they're punishing me for some shit I did earlier in my life or even in a previous life. Woe is me. The gods are unfair. I haven't done anything. But what we said in the very first session is there's a different lens you can use to see all of this, which is it's not punishment, it's transformation. And when the gods hold you down for too long, what we always feel like is too long in pressure and containment, these are actually the hallmarks of a major transformation at play. Right? The hallmarks of transformation are pressure and containment. I mean, think about it this way. If the gods wanted us to die, they would just kill us. Right? If the gods wanted humankind to end, they'd just send a couple meteors and we'd be done in about half an hour. They're not doing that. They're holding us down, and stuff is changing within us. Because what happens when you're held down there? You transform somehow. You change in a very deep way. And it's not always for the better. Some people are scarred for life. I'll never love again. I'll never trust again. I'll never get a non-safe, non-stable job again. Right? Screw that. No more entrepreneurship for me. I'll always be anxious about my health. Every cough, every body ache will always put me into fear and anxiety. And then other people, right? And some people are both, right? But one extreme is that, and the other extreme is you meet these other people who are strangely liberated in almost a manic way. I experienced this myself multiple times in my life, but one of the ones I'm thinking about is in 2006 when my whole family was in a car. We were hit from the side by a red light runner. The car flipped over, turtle, right? All four wheels up in the air. And we all somehow walked away from it. It was myself, it was my 6-year-old daughter in the back seat, and my wife at the time in the passenger seat, pregnant, 5 months pregnant with our son. And somehow we all walked away from it. And my son is a strapping 13-year-old young man now. It's this feeling of like, I shouldn't even be here. I should be dead. I have no idea. I lost everything and yet I'm still here. Or I could have died or even killed myself. I should be a goner and yet here I am. And the sheer shock, the absurdity of that puts that person into a state of wonder and curiosity about why the hell am I even here? And they end up finding an even higher purpose, right? And they just go for it with no more fear. It's like, I'm already dead, so I may as well just cast my fate to the wind and go for it and act out of love and not fear. And so whatever happens in either direction or both directions at the same time, the individual undergoes a profound transformation. But in order for this to happen, in the Bible, the Greek word for this is metanoia, which the church and later Christians translate as repentance. You have to repent, and it's used as a threat of punishment. But the word metanoia in Greek actually means transformation, a turning of the mind. In Buddhist terms, it would be awakening, enlightenment. Anytime you read the Bible and you hear Jesus say the word repent, it's translated from the Greek metanoia. And when you replace the word of repent in the Bible with awakening and transformation, the entire text transforms before your eyes. But in order to effect this transformation, this metanoia, the pressure typically needs to come in relentlessly, wave after wave. I mean, we've all seen this in ourselves and in our friends, even in our enemies. You need to continue to be pounded and pounded over and over again, not because you're a bad person, because sometimes that's the only way to make you let go. And I wonder if this is exactly what is happening here at the global level. I mean, just a week ago, I was like, okay, well, everyone, we may get a second wave of COVID with all the reopenings, but until then, that won't come for at least a couple weeks, right? Until then, we can take a breather and try to sort of do some journaling, haha. And just 48 hours later, the third wave hits and protests have been rocking cities across the US. And make no mistake, the physics that cause this are in all other major Western cities and civilizations as well. Perhaps not as bad or as frighteningly, absurdly humiliating and embarrassing as it is in the US. But inequality, racial, religious, cultural tensions, immigrant populations in Europe, migrant worker populations in Asia, people stressed from COVID, stressed from job loss, and sitting at home with nothing to do. The world is a kind of tinderbox right now. And so the fact is, in my mind, we are being pressed down into further pressure and containment by wave after wave of impetus back into this cocoon stage. I thought we were in enactment, and already we're pushed down into the next wave of cocoon. And from an archetypal standpoint, the only time it happens like this is when you are on the brink of transformation. If you will indulge me further in this analogy, it's like what my women friends have told me childbirth is like. When the contractions now are coming less than 5 minutes apart, when wave after wave of pain and physical pressure and containment hits you relentlessly, you know the baby is coming. And so, what even is this baby? I'd like to meet her. I mean, I don't know. I've been thinking about it for the past 2 months. I mean, thinking about it this morning, I imagine she's a girl and she's black. And I can't wait to meet her. This larger archetypal pattern we are in is afoot. And I haven't quite been ready to talk about it yet. If you've noticed, I've been focusing on the individual level this whole time. The 2.5 months, I never talk about the macro. And I focus on what you need in terms of comfort and support as individuals. I had not been focusing on the macro level because the pattern, the larger archetypal pattern, was simply not clear to me yet. And it's still not clear to me entirely. But this third wave of social upheaval is just, I mean, this is a pattern, right? This is not just some random ass thing. It is deeply impressive to me. It is making a very significant impression on me. And this laying bare of social and political injustice via technology and viral spread, multiple levels of viral spread, and at a time when people are at home and have the time to pay attention and actually react. Nobody's working. And at a time when a lot of societal structures are in play and up in the air, the EU coalescing under more centralized economic coordination. In the US, expansion of social welfare system, which is going to have to happen. We can't just let 40 million jobless people starve. And big movements of power in India and China as well. There is a larger pattern of transformation happening. And you can tell things are trying to change. And it's not clear if this contraction will be enough. We may be up for another 250 years of more suppression and the same. I just don't know. Right? But the point is, you can't say, oh, the baby's coming any minute. And then, if I live my whole life and no big change actually happens from this, I don't call it a failure. I call it like this gestation period is measured in the decades and centuries. And that's fine. I don't love the world any less because she doesn't produce according to my expectations and schedule. I hold space for the world to go through what it needs to go through for all of this to happen. So, as you know, I always say, the outer reflects the inner. And I always say to focus on the inner, and then the outer will take care of itself. The injustice that we see in the world today, all of this stuff, is a reflection of the collective inner state of all of us. Right? I mean, we know who the bad cops are. The databases are filled with the complaints and, accidental killings they've done where they've been let off scot-free. We don't remove them from the police forces. And this is a reflection of many things going on within us, the collective psyche of us as a people. And so my bias is always to heal the inner, and then the outer will take care of itself. And also the next level of that then is, if enough individuals heal, then they all then create a different outer. Because you're like, well, the jerks are out there, they're just not in my orbit. Well, I'll take that for now, right? But then if enough people, right, heal and create these jerkless worlds, pretty soon the jerks end up healing as well. Because the jerks and cowards of the world, they always go with the herd, what they think is the herd. So if the herd starts going in this direction, they'll come along as well. They'll do healing, and then we'll clean the rest of it up. I don't know how long that will take. I suspect it will take quite a bit beyond my natural lifetime. And I'm fine with that, right? We're building for the long term. We are planting olive trees, not green onions. We won't harvest in our lifetimes. And to do that anyway is an act of love. And so for now today, doing what we can do in the next 20, 30 minutes, I propose that let's just, for now, focus on what we can do in front of us for just today and for just right now in our sacred space together. In the face of this third tsunami wave of social upheaval, I'm just going to go back to the individual level for the next 20, 25 minutes and try to give you specific things and tools that will help you and be of comfort and practical, hopefully practical utility to you from the power of the sanctuary of the sacred. Okay. And so in our exercise today, we will do something even deeper and try to support you with this. If you choose, again, only if you want, only if you choose to do it with me. There's no expectation of participation. And so, all right, so I'm going to end my talk here, and we will move to our second piece of our sacred space together. And then that'll be it for this morning. Okay. All right. And so today's exercise will be an exercise similar to the one we did last week, where I invited you to stand in the sacred with me. But today we'll do it, and we will take it one level even further and deeper. And my goal here is to help you to expand further your capacity for carrying load, emotional load, spiritual load within you. What I mean is, I cannot see the pattern of the larger global transformation that is happening, or even how long it will take. But I do know that it will be a strain on all of us. It already is. And I worry the strain will get even greater over time, that the pressure and containment will get even greater over time. So for me, as a healer, spiritual person, in my humble opinion, I don't think we need any exercises that will instigate or catalyze any more transformation. I think I'm I don't know about you. I'm good. Right? That train of transformation has already left the station. Transformation at a profound global and individual level is already underway and is happening. Nothing is going to change that at this point. The baby is coming. Something is coming. But what I would like to have is the ability to expand and deepen our capacity for engaging and flowing through these continued waves of disruption. Right? As the big waves come, as like surfers do, we duck dive under them, we jump with them, and flow through them. And I would also like to expand and deepen our capacity for carrying and holding space for all the things happening in our lives. Economic stress, health anxiety, worry for loved ones, worry for the larger collective society, cabin fever from being in lockdown for so long, and then fear of danger of coming out of lockdown, reacting and responding to atrocity and injustice. All these things we are being compelled to carry all at once. The load is too much. And at an individual level, I would like to try and expand our inner capacity to manage this and make it through this period of profound, pretty much overwhelming transformation. You feel like you're going to die of worry and grief and pain. Everyone is on edge and no one seems to be thinking fully clearly, while everyone is feeling a lot of emotion and even anguish and grief. So that is the thinking behind my choice of exercise for today. And so I'm going to, for the rest of the session, take us through this exercise and just see how we feel. And again, as always, all of this is only if you want. There is no should. There is no expectation of participation. This is an exercise only if you want, where we will stand in the sacred together and come, if you will, into a sacred within the sacred. Now, as we enter into the sacred, we know that deep within us, there are parts of us that we have pushed down at different points of our lives, parts of us which we know are valid parts of our own inner selves, our own true selves, but which we felt forced or pressured in the realm of the profane to cut off and push away and exile and stuff down. Aspects of our personality, interests we have had, the power of our voice to speak our truth, the power of our bodies to be however we wanted them to be, as opposed to how others wanted us to be. Our comfort with using money or not. Our comfort with using our artistic talents or not. our comfort in feeling a permission to even allow ourselves to desire what we actually did desire in our lives or not. Career paths, even though it's what we really wanted, but it did not meet the expectations of others. Lovers we pushed away because they didn't check the right boxes and meet the expectations of others. Aspects of our own personalities, our soulful side, our embodied sides, our feeling sides, we chose to hide and deny because we feared they would be displeasing to the outside profane world, the outside world of fear, threat, and control. Parts of ourselves we have stuffed away because we feared shaming and the loss of approval and the loss of emotional validation. And even we fear the loss of love and the worthiness to deserve to be loved from the outside world. And I want you to understand, I would like you to understand, that within this sacred space we have all created together and are holding together for ourselves and each other, there is an even deeper sacred space at the center of the sacred space, a sacred within the sacred, an inner central sanctum. And you can choose to stand with me inside this central inner sanctum, this sacred within the sacred, if you want. And I will be inviting you to do so in just a moment. Now, if we were physically together, this would be a sunny patch of grass in the middle where we would each make our choice to stand in the center together, only if we want, with no fear, threat, or control. And no judgment on whether you choose to come in or not. And here online, I will explain how we can stand in this center sacred space together. But before I do, I want to explain what this inner space is and what stepping forward and standing together in it means, what it signifies, and then you can make your own sovereign choice as to whether to stand in the sacred or not. And either way, it's totally okay. There is no fear, threat, or control. Now, there is no negative consequence if you do not do this, and no extra bonus if you do choose to do it. It is simply a blessing of an opportunity while we are gathered here together to do this extra thing within you, if you want, and only if you want. If you choose to stand in the sacred with me today, you are making a public commitment, not to the people around you per se, but publicly within you, as the sovereign of your own inner realm, as the queen of your inner queendom, as the king of your inner kingdom, to publicly declare to the vast pantheon of forces within you that you, as the sovereign of your life and inner realm, that you are creating and holding this protected sacred space within you, deep in the cave of your heart, for all the exiled parts of your true inner self to finally come back home. Your inner black man, your inner white woman, your inner white, unjust perpetrator, your inner bully. All these parts of yourself that are reflected all around you in the diorama of the quote-unquote waking world outside you. All of these parts you call home to yourself, and you commit that they will be, from this day forward, good or bad, loving or jerkish, from this day forward, under your own sacred and sovereign protection. You are not saying you will do whatever they want. You're not saying they were right and you were wrong. After they come back, we will still debate and argue within ourselves and compromise and reconcile and plan our life together forward. But from now on, from this day forward, you are committing that within you as sovereign power, that all of you will do it together. All these parts of your true inner self, beyond right and wrong, beyond good and bad, beyond moral and immoral, we are, above all else, within ourselves, a family. And we are one. And in today, if you're ready, It is time for all of your lost and exiled cut off parts to come back home to you. And so today, as sovereign, if you choose to stand in the sacred with me, you are making a public commitment, public within your own inner self, in the town square of your own inner self, to call all parts of you back home to you. Good, bad, right or wrong, none of that matters today. It is just time for everyone to come on back home. And you will give them protection and shelter in the sacred space within you, devoid of fear, threat, and control, and filled with love, nurturing, and surrender. This is your choice. You don't have to do this today or ever. But here in this moment, you can. You can. And so if you choose now to stand in the sacred with me and call the lost children of your inner kingdom or queendom home to you, you would do two things. The first is you can type in the chat, I stand in the sacred with you. And I'll type that right now. Stand in the sacred with you. And you can do this in the comments, on Facebook, in the chat here in Crowdcast. In the replay, you can do it on either as well. And then after you do that, in the privacy of your own space at home, you can put your hand on your heart and create that sacred space within you and call your lost parts home to you. Wherever they are, whomever they are, you call them home to you now and into the protected sanctuary you have prepared for them, the sacred space you are holding for them, deep in the cave of your heart. And if you feel so moved, and only if you want, you can go ahead and do that now. You can type out, I stand in the sacred with you, and then hand on heart, and then call your lost parts home. Even if you're watching from the recorded replay, you can still type in the chat on Crowdcast or the Facebook comments, I stand in the sacred with you, put a hand on your heart, and call your lost parts home. You're rejected, shamed, exiled, violating, humiliated, denied, ridiculed parts, scattered out in the fields of the profane, in the profane precincts of fear, control, and threat. You close your eyes and you call them all back home to you, back into the sacred with you, deep in the cave of your heart. In your life, up till now, if you were not sure if you were really welcoming of these forsaken parts of you back to you, or not sure if you have really called them back to you fully and with love, if you were not fully sure before today, you can make sure now. You can type, I stand in the sacred with you, hand on heart, close your eyes, and call your inner exiles, the parts of you you have forsaken all your life, back in from the cold and back home to you. You do this only if you want. If you feel a tug in your heart and a surge of emotion, then you go ahead and let that flow through and you take hold of this moment. If you don't feel it or you feel resistance, that's okay. Don't fight it. You don't have to do it. There is no negative consequence if you don't do it, and there is no positive bonus if you do. There is no fear, control, or threat, because you always retain your own sovereign power, and you do it only if you want to. You come stand in the sacred with me, but only if you want to. Now then, standing as you are in the sacred, with all the powers within you gathered all around you. And for many of you, this is the second time you have done this exercise. Many of you already did this exercise just last week. And so now when you call them back to you, they all rush in and gather all around you quickly and effortlessly and happily with a kind of deep familiarity and love. Even the scary ones, even the scary ones. The full pantheon of all aspects of your whole self, all your life forces, all gathered all around you in love. In the sacred, within the sacred, in the town square of your sovereign inner realm. And what I invite you to do now is that I invite you to turn to them now. And as their sovereign, I invite you to give over to them all that you cannot carry anymore. I invite you to give over to them all that you cannot carry anymore. The fears about virus and sickness, the anxiety around income and money, the strain on your relationships, the exhaustion from holding it all together for so long, the heartbreak over injustice and loss of life and loss of loved ones. All these things you cannot carry anymore. I invite you, as sovereign and only if you want, to give them over to your whole self that has gathered all around you in the love and nurturing and surrender of the sacred space you have made for them. And you let them carry for you all that you cannot carry anymore. You lean on their shoulders and you let their strong backs bear you up. They are here for you. And the longer they have been exiled, the further you have pushed them away from you, the more ready and impatient they are to come home to you and help you on your path. They may have a lot to say to you. You may have a lot of catching up to do. But while you walk together, they can help you carry your load. They can carry for you all that you just cannot carry anymore. Let them do this for you. They have been waiting to come home to you for a very long time. And now, as we slowly prepare to come back out of our sacred space exercise, you don't have to stop anything within you. You are the sovereign. You can keep the sacred space within you open, and you can continue to give over to your full and full-powered self all that you cannot carry, and they will just hold it. They will hold all of it for you. Even as you come out of our sacred space exercise, even as you come out of the sacred space session, and even as you emerge back into the realm of the profane, they are always there with you, within you. And whatever disagreements you may have with them on how the direction of your life should go and whether you're good enough or not, or any of the worries or fears of anxiety or anxieties, they do love you and support you without condition. Thank you. Thank you for being with me. And so, for those of you who are standing with me in the sacred, I honor you. And I thank you for being comfortable with me. And those of you who have chosen not to stand with me in the sacred this time, or ever, thank you too. And I honor you too for being comfortable with me to make your own sovereign choice in the safe, surrendered sacred space we have created here together. This is the point of a sacred space like this. Whatever choice you made, as it was made in safety and sovereignty, I thank you and I honor you. And I bestow upon you my blessing equally. And now, as we come out of this exercise, the sacred space you are in, and all the powers you have gathered to you and all around you, all this is within your own self. It is within your own sovereign realm. No one can take it away from you. You can stay there and have these powers with you, around you, beside you, as long as you want, forever if you like. And even if you forget it's there or deny they are there, they are actually always still there with you. And you can always call them home to you, within you. All right. Okay, so now I'll close the session. The next session is Sunday. It's free. It's open to everyone. Please feel free to invite others. Post any questions you may have. The green button you have, you can sign up for the next session now. And I just want everyone to be safe and just be careful this next week. So I hereby close this session of our shared sacred space. I thank you for holding this space with me, and I thank you for sharing the nourishment, the emotional nourishment, the spiritual nourishment of this shared sacred space with me. I give you my blessing. Go in peace, bestowed with blessing, free of fear, free of threat, and free of the undue control of others. Have a great day. Have a great week. Enjoy your sacred space. And I will see you in the next session. Thank you. Thank you.